Welcome to the Chicago Bears Podcast, a presentation of ESPN Chicago, Chicago's home for sports. Here's your host, Pat, the designer.
We do got to talk about the quarterback connection and what this offense is looking like. Very, very, very early on. We all have to say this, right? Because this is the time of year where if Justin Fields throws an interception, it's like, I told you guys, he has no accuracy. He's not and if he throws a touchdown, he's the next Tom Brady. You know what I mean? So, but we did hear a lot about the Fields to DJ Moore connection, more so today than yesterday. Justin said it was just because kind of there were more plays drawn up for DJ. What did you see out of that connection? What did you see? Does it feel like they're gelling early and that DJ is the clear-cut number one?
I mean, he is the clear-cut number one. And I asked Fields about something that Tyke Tolbert said 2 weeks ago at rookie camp, that this is a group where you have more established wide receivers. Like, you're not trying to figure out what guys can do and what they can't do. Like, you know what you have. And naturally, that's going to help the quarterback. And, you know, Fields knows that DJ Moore is your one. He's your X. He's playing outside. And, you know, the deep ball connection that we saw today, one memorable one during, you know, there's throwing routes on air during the individual period. And then, of course, the deep ball down the far sideline in the team period in 11-on-11 was a beautiful catch. And single coverage for DJ Moore there, and listening to him kind of break down what happened, how it worked, and hearing Fields say, like, how does this guy get separation? How does he, the speed element there is so critical, Pat, because, and I thought Fields said this perfectly, that he's never going to be running 100% on any given route, because he has that extra gear that he can kick in and accelerate and be able to find that space between himself and the defensive back to, give his quarterback a more clean target. Who can you say did that exact same thing on last year's roster? You can't. So I think naturally you have a quarterback who's really excited and about the potential of what this receiver group can be. But it starts with someone like DJ Moore, who they brought in for a reason. And it's not just to elevate that room that you have you can have a receiver that has, more than 493 receiving yards. It's to give your quarterback a security blanket, to give him the guy that he trusts, to be able to throw to a spot, because that's one reason it all correlates. Like last year, the big question going into training camp, at least, or going into the season, was, will Justin Fields be able to get rid of the ball faster? Is it on the offensive line? Is it on the receivers not creating separation, not getting to where they need to be? And the answer is yes to all of it. But I think for Fields to be able to trust he can throw a guy open and throw to a spot and that his guy is going to get there, he didn't have that trust last year. It was evident in what showed up on film. So he has that now in the very early stages, and he's building that with DJ Moore. So I think, for the fact that they were both very honest and more too, about how, yesterday was, it's a work in progress. Today's definitely better than yesterday. That stuff matters because they're building upon something, and you just don't have to guess about who's going to be what in this offense. And frankly, the receiver battle to see, do they keep 5? Do they keep 6 on this roster, knowing what the tight end room is going to look like? It'll be really interesting to see what who gets those 1 or 2 bottom spots, because it feels like the depth chart, at least on paper right now, is pretty much set for some of the more premier, predominant receiver roles.
I was cracking up because, whenever there's a new connection, it's always, oh man, we love each other. It's the greatest thing when you guys ask, what's the relationship like? Oh man, he's my best friend. And DJ was just honest. He was like, I mean, it's working. Yeah, I mean, hey, we getting it together. Like, I like him. Like, I feel like that's the first time I've ever heard somebody do that. Like, normally it's just like, I love this guy, he's my favorite. I've always watched him from afar. DJ was just so honest. He was like, I ain't really pay attention to him last season at all, except when we played him. So shout out to him. He looked good for this season.
Yeah. And I asked him about that because he's coming in as a foreigner into this team, because he hasn't been around the Justin Fields progression of having year 1 and then having to undo a bunch of things within his mechanics for year 2. And now where he's at in year 3, this is his first look up close at Justin Fields. And he really hasn't he doesn't have anything, if there was any sort of like bias or any sort of thing that like other players have about, man, Fields does this well, he doesn't do this well. DJ Moore's coming in with a clean slate. Like, he doesn't know truly what the menu looks like of Justin Fields just yet because he hasn't experienced a full off season. But, you know, he feels like he's going to be, I think, what did he say? Like, I asked him, he's like, I think he'll be great, you know, this season. Like, what else is he going to say?
Yeah.
Like, he came here and I mean, it wasn't his choice. He was traded, but it goes back to DJ Moore being able to produce with whoever the hell is throwing in the ball. I mean, that happened in his situation in Carolina. I think that you kind of like resign yourself to the fact of that's not something I can control as a wide receiver. And I can't control if Justin Fields is going to be great, if he's going to be good, if he's going to be elite, if he's going to like take a step back. He can't control any of that. All he can do is be the guy who does create that separation to give you the deep threat. But certainly, you know, it's not just that he's like your stretch of the field, you know, post route guy. He can do that, but he can, and he knows he's going to have to learn the entire offense and all of the routes that, you know, are part of this tree. He's your number one, though. That is your security blanket for Justin Fields. That's why you made this investment and why trading the number one pick in the way that they did came down to DJ Moore has to be part of this equation or we're not getting a deal done.
Does it feel like, at least at first glance, right, that Justin is a lot more comfortable kind of in this system going into year two? We heard him talk about that, you know, he feels better about the fact that, you know, he can come in and he kind of knows how things are going to go. He understands how OTAs are going to be set up, different things like that. But does it feel like he's just more comfortable just even early on, right, just going through his progressions, going through his reads and where he needs to be, and even just sometimes putting the ball out there and trusting that the receiver is going to be there?
Yeah, and I mean, he said as much. I mean, this is so different for him because, you know, for the first time since he was in college, like, you know, that last year at Ohio State, and I mean, he had different quarterbacks coaches back then. Like, this is same coach calling the plays, same quarterbacks coach, same offensive coordinator, same offense. Where last year, that whole term of drinking from a fire hose, I think would have been an accurate representation of everything Justin Fields was dealing with during OTAs. And remember, because of Matt Eberflus getting hired in the new front office, they started OTAs like in April last year. We were out here right before the draft. I think it was like 420. And we were, you know, watching them and watching Justin Fields, like very simple concepts that end up obviously playing a huge role and are not simple in a lot of respects, just of the footwork. Like last year at this time, it was I'm changing the foot I drop back with because all of that times up with when I need to release the ball, where my receiver needs to be in his route progression, all of those things. It's elementary in the standpoint. I mean, obviously it's very complicated stuff, but it's elementary in the standpoint of he's past that step now. He's not starting from ground zero and having to learn something, a whole new language, which offenses are. He gets to come in, all right, I know the offense. I know what plays we ran last year. We're starting to incorporate more plays, and they will continue to do that over the next, 4 or 5 weeks before they get to the break between mini camp and training camp. But, for this quarterback, the belief the team has in him, the fact that he's here in his third year and he knows what's going to be asked of him, that there's a comfort level to, hey, I've done this before. I know what's required of me to play quarterback in this offense. And by the way, the team has invested in me. It's very clear by the additions that they made, and that's not lost on Fields. I think that really, that sort of backing too has him probably walking in here. I mean, he's a very confident human being and a leader of this team. The Bears know that, and that's something that I think they knew not long into last season, that he was probably the guy from that respect. But for his progression as a quarterback and what's next, you don't have to relearn everything and then be playing catch up when it comes time to get to training camp. He's in a spot now where he has mastered so many of the beginning steps, and he can then pick up with a new chapter once they get to training camp.
How are we feeling about Chase Claypool and understanding this playbook? I heard that asked as well, but I think that's the biggest concern because like another one of my doppelgangers, I told Ryan Poles basically to go out and get him, and he gets him 2 days later. So, everybody's looking at me like, you did this to us. Is Chase Claypool look like he's at least understanding, knowing where to line up, turning himself back into that guy that we hoped to see?
So my first impression of him today, and this is going to sound dumb, but like he's 6'4". He's listed as 6'4" on the roster. He looks so much taller in person than I remembered. And I know that at 24 years old, however old he is, he didn't have a growth spurt. At least I think that your gender probably ends their growth spurt a little bit sooner than that.
I think we can grow. How long can we grow? Yeah, all the way to like 25, I think, actually.
Okay, maybe
Didn't Luol Deng grow again? Maybe
he grew an inch. I don't know. I just remember like thinking to myself, and I asked a couple of the beat writers, I'm like, does he look taller to you, or did I get shorter? Did my perspective change? So from the physical part, he looks every bit of the receiver that they brought in. Yeah. And Fields answered a question that I asked about the mechanics, going back to like the footwork. Like, now that you mastered that part, what's the next technical thing that you want to do? Like what you really want to focus on? And he said, of course, like it's just going faster and mastering all of that, getting on the same page with his guys and working guys in. And he specifically mentioned Chase Claypool, which I thought was interesting because you'll remember one of the lasting images of the season last year was the game in Detroit where he's having a meltdown on the sideline and Fields, goes up to him and says something to him. And it was very honest about that afterwards, about like what he had to do to kind of like regain control of that situation. And then, the interceptions that, Tim Boyle threw at the end of the week 18 game. And I believe that Claypool was targeted on both of those. And to my understanding, Claypool ran the wrong route on those interceptions. So that's, that part of Chase Claypool is our lasting memory of what he looked like during the 2022 season. How Justin Fields was talking about him makes it sound like this is somebody who got refreshed this offseason, that his work ethic is really, really good, that he has an attitude change. Those are direct words that Justin Fields used. And I think that's pretty powerful when your quarterback is noting this change in you, and that you are, the improvement from last year to now. 6 months ago, it was a completely different player trying to learn this offense. And I think there have been some excuses given to Chase Claypool of, he got here in November. He didn't have time to learn the whole playbook. And different positions require different things. Because I remember like last year when Baker Mayfield like slept for like 5 minutes on the plane going to Los Angeles, and then they end up, I believe, winning that game on Thursday Night Football after he was traded. Like, people were like, how come Baker Mayfield can pick up a whole offense? He's a quarterback. He needs to know more than just like, running a route. And then how come Chase Claypool can't do it? Like, those excuses are null and void now. Whatever they were last year, whether there's any validity to that is gone. And so, I really believe that this will be such a pivotal year for him, not just from a contract perspective, because he was a 2020 draft pick, so he's eligible in year 4 to get that extension. They've got to see him produce. So I think when you hear from guys about receivers and quarterbacks about the offseason, that it's not just like getting to know guys on the field, it's building that trust off of it. We saw several things where Justin Fields and Chase Claypool have, been out together. They went to that Bulls game right after DJ Moore was traded here, and everything like that, I think, matters, because Fields needs to know that he can trust this guy to get open, to do his job, and to have an attitude that isn't going to tear the locker room apart. Because when you're on a 3-14 team, and hopefully for their sake, they're not repeating that, you can't have a locker room cancer. You can't have somebody whose attitude, if it's negative, it's going to affect the rest of the receiver room and what you're trying to build.
No, yeah, it did feel like I do like how Justin took control of that, and it seems like he's kind of taken Chase Claypool under his wing, like he's the vet on the team, but kind of it does feel like that, where we've come into this season with Chase Claypool's got to perform, but maybe he's the one who we don't really have a clear-cut position for. But it sounds like, just hearing from Justin today, that Chase is going to be a major part of this offense, maybe even more so than Darnell Mooney off the bat, just because of the size of the ability to go up and see it. So